Good morning, everyone. My name is Twane Ahorangi Bartlett, and I am a violet ray twin flame from Parakai, New Zealand. Today, I would like to talk about Dark Night of the Soul, and some of you might have heard about it. Some of you out there might have experienced it. For people who's currently going through the Dark Night of the Soul and who resonates with what I'm about to say here, I'm sending you loving support from the deepest part of my heart, because it is most probably one of the most difficult transformations that you'll go through in your life. And sorry, I'm feeling a bit teary, but I do feel like I want to share my experience today. I'm approaching the time of the year when I personally went through the climax of my Dark Night of the Soul. Around about, it was on the 23rd of September 2014, and I'm still digesting, still regurgitating on the process of the transformation, because it's a deep psychological transformation that is taking place on psychological level, spiritual level, emotional level. All who you are will never, ever be the same again. And I find that people who are studying the subject, who's studying the process of Dark Night of the Soul, but they haven't gone through it themselves, sort of come from an aspect, from a place where they would analyze and say, oh, but you're going to experience life at a deeper, meaningful level. It is for your own advancement in this life, to be able to have a meaningful life. And I find that what I'm going to say here is going to be my own personal experience of what I've been through. And not everybody will necessarily resonate with it. So if you've got any questions about Dark Night of the Soul, or you just want to share your experience, please leave a comment below. Okay, so Dark Night of the Soul, it started in April, around about Easter 2014 for me. And the first sign for me that something was changing was that people didn't like me. And that was a strange experience, because I've always been well received, because I'm a healer. I work in pharmacy, I'm in service industry, I have 25 years experience working with people, and even with all that experience of working with people and knowing how to serve them, all of a sudden people didn't like me. And people had an expectation of me to behave in a certain way, when all of a sudden it didn't feel right for me to behave in a certain way. And that certain way was to be always nice, pleasant, peaceful, professional, all the good stuff, open and jovial and happy, a good sense of humor, light, uplifting, positive disposition towards life and people in general. And with things and situations that started coming to my life, it was like this dark side of me that was being pulled to the surface. And the first symptom or sign of this dark side that was just being uh, pulled up from the depths of my soul was an immense heartache every day, and a feeling of frustration and a deep discontent with life as it was unfolding, and a feeling of being chained down by people, by life, and the desire to break free from expectations of other people, expectations and limitations that life had put on me. That was sort of the initial part of what made me realize that something was wrong. Something inside myself needed attention, but I didn't know what it was. It felt like depression. It felt like despair, and like I was dying. It literally felt like I was dying, and through the time, like it's almost 2 years later, and I can sort of look back now and I can see that there is a little bit of a pattern. And it seems like, if you will, like if you take a plug and you unplug it, and the unplugging of the way I communicated with people. So I had a certain way of communicating with people, and that was unplugged, okay, taken out of me, and I knew that I had to find new ways to start communicating with people. And the unplugging, once again, in that initial stage, and that unplugging comes through discontentment, knowing that something, an aspect of myself, needs to change. So you unplug it, I unplug it. And another thing was outdated behavior that I needed to unplug. I realized that I was codependent in almost all my relationships, to the point where I couldn't help myself. I thought I was strong and independent, but I had an overwhelming disability, actually, of being codependent on my ex-husband for various tasks that I felt that I couldn't do for myself. Like, it was more administration kind of things that you would take care of in, like a marriage partnership. So when it came to contracts and the official sort of documentation, insurance, that sort of stuff, I didn't have a head for it, so he was always in charge of that. And so that's just one aspect of myself that needed to change. And so the codependency came about, and it more or less came about when I decided to leave my husband in 2013 after an 18-year marriage that didn't work. And so when I left him, I had to all of a sudden stand on my own 2 feet, and that's when it all started to piece together on how codependent I was in relationships, in friendships, and I had to have a good look at myself as far as that's concerned. Another aspect of myself that I had to unplug was the blood ties to family. The family that I was born into. I immigrated from South Africa to New Zealand in 2006 with my husband and my 2 daughters, And I was always very much a family person. But what I found with Dark Night of the Soul is that there was an unplugging, a disconnection with the blood ties, the family that I was born into. For the simple fact that when I went through the Dark Night of the Soul, I was totally alone. There was no one to support me because I'm an only child and the rest of the family is still back in South Africa. And the pain, the chaos of the overwhelming darkness inside of me pulled me into a place where even if I wanted to share what I was going through, nobody was getting it. Nobody understood what I was talking about. And that also comes into that aspect of how people relate to me. All of a sudden, I had nobody, I had no family, I had no friends. And with the Dark Night of the Soul, it is one of those transformations that you go through alone. There's nobody that can help you to go through it. It is literally like dying. And if you think about the process of dying, only you can do it. Even if there's a whole room of filled with people sitting next to your deathbed holding your hand, you're the only person who's going to go through that transformation. And it was very much like that experience. So over a very short period of time, I lost everything. I lost my family, I lost my home, my husband, my pets, my car, any asset that you can think of that you can possibly possess in the physical world was gone. And at the climax of the Dark Night of the Soul, it was a process that took place for maybe about four or 5 hours. I can't remember because it was literally going through the depths of hell bare feet, crying out to God to help me. And I have been always a spiritual person from the day I was born, and I always had a very close relationship with God and the angels, and my dad who had crossed over at the age of 7. So with the climax of the Dark Night of the Soul, I was calling out to God to come save me, to take away the pain, the isolation, the desolation, the loneliness, the separation of everything. Because in that little room that I was renting in a random house with random people because I had nowhere else to go, I was crying out to God. And God did not come. He did not answer my prayer. For the first time in my life, from the start of the Dark Night of the Soul, which was April, until September, so 6 months, God did not answer me. He didn't even hear me. And that is just a feeling. And up until today, I still feel God forsaken, because that was one of the aspects that also needed unplugging, was the way that I relate in my spirituality to spirit. That needed to change because life is preparing me for a different journey. And that is why I haven't cut my hair. I've been growing my hair since the day God forsake me. And I know this is only words, it's a feeling of being God forsaken, because nothing can separate us from the love of God. But the dark night of the soul is that experience of being God forsaken. So with the unplugging, I'm just going to recap. I had to change my communication on how I communicate with people. I had to change outdated behavior, codependency in partnerships. I had to unplug my blood ties so that I could relate on a larger scale to all walks of life, people, different people. And I also had to unplug my spirituality in the way I perceive my spirituality, and how I live bring out my spirituality on a daily basis. So once I've unplugged all of that, on the 21st of June in 2014, my Kundalini activated itself, and I was in a world of pain physically, because I didn't know what was happening. And I came into contact with an international healer. His name is Nigel Collis, and he basically saved my life by helping me to regulate the energy and to teach me about what was happening. And that was sort of like a benchmark. It was a turning point in the dark night of the soul for me. And with this, I'm not saying that everybody's Kundalini will activate itself spontaneously when they go through dark night of the soul. Everybody's journey is tailor-made for the individual. This is just my experience. So with the activation of the Kundalini, it was a turning point. So I unplugged all the old programs. And with the activation of the Kundalini, bringing in new spiritual energy, because that is what it is, Kundalini energy is spiritual energy, I started to plug back in new ways to communicate with people. And because of the depths of hell that I have plummeted inside myself, that aspect of myself that needed to die, that wasn't serving me, I have a deep understanding and a deep sympathy and empathy for people who are going through emotionally tough times, or people who are just having a tough time in general, for whatever reason and whatever department or aspect of their life. So it opened me up emotionally so that I could communicate in a sensitive way with people. The outdated behavior and the cutting or the unplugging of the family cords gave me permission and space to stand in my truth as to who I am. During the dark night of the soul, I had financial difficulty to the point where I didn't have food to eat, and I had to start reading tarot to eat. If I didn't read, I wouldn't eat. And I've been reading tarot since I was very young, and I never did it for money, but it became a necessity for me in order to survive. And with reading tarot, that initiated the psychological, psychic aspect of myself, where my spiritual gifts started to unfold and come in and gain strength with every time I read. And I started to see clairvoyantly. I started to hear people who had crossed over and bringing messages through. And I connected closer and closer with my guides. And with reading tarot and doing astrology, that was a a big no-no for the background that I was raised in. I was raised in a very strict Christian background with family ties. So in a way I had to cut the connection with family because of the expectations of me, so that I could stand in my truth as to who I am. And who am I? I am a healer, I am a clairvoyant, and I am a medium. And this is who I am. So with the plugging back into the new systems that was set into place because I've cleared the old through the dark night of the soul, I had the freedom to stand in my truth and say, this is me, this is who I am. And as a healer and a clairvoyant, I don't want to be put in a box, because I'm here to help everybody. I don't want religion to create a duality for reasons for judging people as to their religion or where they come from, because there's no discrimination. Once I've gone through the dark night of the soul, I cannot discriminate against anybody, because we are all here on our own journey. And through the hell that I've suffered, who am I to judge anybody? I have lost everything. And so one of the things that also come with the dark night of the soul is plugging into the oneness of the grand scheme of things, becoming aware of the bigger picture, that the world is much bigger than just me going to work and providing for myself with a day job and going back home and just repeating it all the time. There's more to life than that. So in the dying, the death of the aspect of myself where I get caught up in codependency of partnerships, created a space for me to freely relate to everyone, everywhere, at any time. And I would love to hear your experiences on Dark Night of the Soul. There's so much more to this aspect, because I do believe that Dark Night of the Soul is a very important part of the twin flame journey, because the twin flame is a spiritual connection, and it is about breaking down old structures that doesn't serve us anymore. And Dark Night of the Soul is plunging to the very depths of the being of who you are, of an aspect that's dying because it doesn't serve you in your spirituality. It didn't serve me in my union with my twin. So I had to become aware of the world and the people on a much larger scale to enable me to help people and to truly understand and to bring in the spiritual energy that is my life purpose in this union. Not everybody that is in twin flame will go through, rephrase, not everybody will go through a dark night of the soul. And it is not, I do think that it is tailor-made to twin flame union, even though there are people outside of twin flame, soulmates, that would go through a dark night of the soul in order for spiritual development, depending on their life journey. Please leave some comments. Tell me what you think about this video. I know it's a bit of a long video, but once again, I had a lot to say about this, and it's a very raw experience. It's something that I feel up until today, and it's I don't think there's anything that will justify the pain that I went through. And it is one of those double-edged swords where there is a lot of goodness that come from it. But for me, I will always have the scar of having to go through that experience of dying 1,000 deaths and nobody there to help you. And one of the big shifts that took place for me in my spirituality is when I cried out to God and He didn't come to help me, I felt spirit. I felt my spiritual guides instead. So a big shift that took place was to relate on a closer level with the assistance of my guides when I do my psychic readings. And it's not to say that I don't believe in God. I still do believe that there's a God, there's a higher consciousness, but I just don't perceive Him as the Christian God anymore. So that is the big religious spiritual shift that took place for me, because to believe in a Christian God would sort of force me to judge other people and what they believe in, which is it's an aspect that doesn't serve me anymore. So please feel free to leave a comment, and you can contact me on Heart Solutions, www.heartsolutions with the nz.com. That's my website address. My email address is heartsolutions with the nz@gmail.com. I'm also an avid Facebooker. You can contact me on my Facebook page, and I'd love to know what you think about this. Please, if there's anybody out there who just want to have a chat about what they're going through, I'm here for you. Sending everyone love and light.